Jeff, this seems like a fine afternoon to take a rowboat out, doesn't it?
I agree, it is.
But why are we here on this particular lake in Francestown, New Hampshire?
Well, I thought we'd take the boat out on the lake to see if we could hear ghostly voices crying out from the shore.
So I take it this lake is haunted.
More than you know, Ray. A lot of people call this Scoby Pond because of the family who once owned the land, but officially, this body of water is called Haunted Lake. Hi, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 54 of the New England Legends podcast. Woo-hoo! If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
And I'm Ray Auger. That's me.
That's it.
Each week, we take you someplace in New England in search of ghosts, monsters, aliens, strange history, and just the plain weird.
Yeah.
You can find all of our archives, plus check out the New England Legends television series on PBS and Amazon Prime, Jeff's upcoming lecture tour, learn how to become a patron, and get access to bonus episodes, all from our website, ournewenglandlegends.com.
It is quite a place, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. So we appreciate everyone who's been interacting with us through our website, super secret Facebook group, and our legend line at 617-444-9683. Call or text us anytime.
All right, Jeff, you're telling me that this lake in Francestown, New Hampshire is officially called Haunted Lake?
It really is. Here, check out Google Maps.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how did this happen?
Ray, I'm really glad you asked that question. The story goes that centuries ago, a man was murdered on the shore of this lake and buried in the shallow ground. His spirit cries out at night and has haunted this place pretty much ever since.
That sounds like some pretty generic folklore, Jeff. You know better than that.
Yeah, well,
I can't imagine that's enough to get the body of water named something as ominous as Haunted Lake, though.
I agree with you there, Ray, so we're going to have to investigate.
Yes.
So the next question is, can we find facts? Can we find any physical evidence?
Well, here's the crazy thing.
Okay.
When you start digging in on this one, it turns out sometimes where there's smoke, well, there's fire.
Ooh,
Yeah.
really?
So we have to look how far back this name and story goes.
It turns out, centuries.
Centuries?
First, a little more information about this lake.
Okay.
It's about 1 mile in length, measuring east to west, and a little less than a mile measuring north to south. And it's also pretty shallow overall.
And we did some research, as we always do with these stories.
Right.
And we found a book published in 1895 called History of Francestown, New Hampshire, 1758 to 1891. It was edited and written by Reverend W.R. Cochran and George K. Wood. Here, take a look.
Ray, I've seen big city phone books shorter than this. This thing's like over 1,000 pages long.
I know, but the part we're concerned with is section 21 of this book.
Okay, let's check that out. In reading this mighty tome, we find there's more than one theory as to where the name and reputation came from. In one version, there's a story that a fire once scorched all the trees along the shore until they were black. When surveyors came by soon after that, they looked and saw a horror scene. So they gave the lake a spooky name.
Another version pertains to the landowners, the Scoby family. Some suggested the Scoby boys would frighten certain, quote, liquor-soaked loafers
Right.
by the lake by acting like ghosts and monsters as people pass by.
But that version of the story doesn't hold up because the water was known as Haunted Lake before the Scoby family ever even purchased the land.
Now, the most prominent story involves two men who in 1741 came up from the south bound for Hillsborough to buy land for a settlement.
Okay.
So these two guys run into each other along the way and decide to travel together for a bit because they're both heading for the same town.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yep, sure.
Camping by this lake, the two get into a quarrel and one kills the other, then buries him beside the lake.
Well, this begs the next question, which is, can we prove that happened? Was there a murder here? If we jump ahead a little bit to 1753, we find the diary of the Honorable Matthew Patton of Bedford, who had been hired to survey the lake and make a schedule of lots. His diary mentions that this was called Haunted Pond even back then.
A haunted pond or lake?
It's been called both a lake and a pond, and in the interest of being thorough, I checked exactly what the difference is between a pond and a lake.
And what did you find?
It turns out it's totally arbitrary. So while it's agreed that lakes are bigger than ponds, the exact point at which a pond becomes a lake isn't clearly defined. So it's pretty much left to every community to either call a body of water one label or another.
I guess we're not here to debate the pond or lake part of the name anyway,
No,
right?
we're not.
All right, we're here to talk about the haunting.
True. So the Honorable Matthew Patton writes about his experience by Haunted Pond in 1753 with his two chainmen.
Soon after darkness set in, there commenced groanings and shrieks as of a human being in distress, and these continued most plaintive and affecting till early morning. These chainmen were hardy fellows, not accustomed to fear the face of man, but they had some superstition and some alarm at signs and bad omens, and they could not be persuaded to continue their work, even for an hour. They started at once in the morning for their home in Bedford. This event, of course, confirmed previous rumors that the place was haunted and established the name Haunted Pond.
By 1753, this was already known as Haunted Pond, or Lake, for at least a generation.
That's quite a ghost experience circa 1753.
Yeah.
But it's still just a story, right?
Well, it turns out this story has legs and ribs and all kinds of other bones.
What do you mean?
In 1780, new landowner David Scoby was building a sawmill near the outlet of the pond where he could have running water to power the mill. While they were dragging logs down over the bank into position for the future water wheel, they uncovered something. A human skeleton was unearthed right near where Scoby was constructing his mill.
Whoa. Suddenly, the murder story sounds a lot more fact than fiction.
I know, it does. We may not know actual names or dates, but suddenly there's a body.
After the Scoby Mill was in operation, David's son had some fun exploiting the name and reputation of Haunted Pond by dousing some fabrics in flammable oils. They'd set these effigies on a raft and push it out into the lake on fire at night while they were screaming and howling.
So that really did happen.
It did. And the hoax mixes with the history, mixes with the legend, and people can say the name is just a made-up story.
And you can't really blame the Scoby boys, can you?
No, not at all.
I get it. So I think at this point, let's row the boat ashore and check out one more thing.
All right, what are we looking for?
If there was a mill here in 1780, we might still be able to find some signs of it. We're setting the boat in the northeastern corner of the lake.
All right, why this spot?
Well, two reasons. First, if we check Google Maps again, we can see there are two streams that are outlets from the pond right around here. If you were to build a mill, you'd need that to run the water wheel.
Okay, and the second reason?
Well, if you allow me to look at Google Maps one more time,
Sure.
check out the name of the road that runs right next to this part of the lake.
Scoby Road.
Right.
I guess sometimes the signs are obvious, aren't they?
They sometimes are. So just a hunch that the name Scoby Road was named after the guy who once owned the land right here, which makes me think his mill was right around this area where we are right now. So let's look.
I see a stream right over here.
Yeah, I think that's it. Let's look up just a little bit further.
All right, I see an old stone wall built right around the stream.
This has to be the Scoby Mill site. That would have dammed up the water to help run the water wheel.
Which means the skeleton would have been unearthed, like right about where you're standing.
It's a little unnerving, isn't it?
It is, especially considering it's starting to get a little dark, Jeff.
Though we can't say with certainty a murder took place here, there's an awful lot of circumstantial evidence behind this story and the name Haunted Lake.
I guess the only thing left at this point is to listen for those groans and screams in the dark.
Ray, did you know the other major body of water in Francestown is called, and I'm not making this up,
Okay.
Pleasant Pond? But
No way.
that's a story for another podcast.
Meaning a podcast that isn't the New England Legends podcast?
Exactly. That's not up our alley at all.
All right. We'd like to thank Michael Legge for lending his voice acting talents this week. And our theme music is, of course, by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.